It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. It's January. I can't get away from it. It is January. Welcome to your January 2020. New year, new decade. Hope you had a good holiday season. Hope all is well as you start off the brandy new year. Hope your team did just fine in the NFL playoffs, or the team that you hate lost early enough that it makes you feel good. That's just a little side note for me and Mark. We're not saying which team. We're not alienating you. Not happening. But I bet you can guess. This is the program that takes the mystery out of your financial life, and we are broadcasting live from the Capital One studios. Capital One, what's in your wallet? That's a question for you. Okay, so let's see. We got a lot going on here. So much happened. I got a slew of emails from all of you about the Secure Act. Relax, calm down. We are going to do a whole episode that will be really geared towards what you need to know about the Secure Act, which is really a big change and overhaul to retirement plans. In the meantime, if, in fact, you cannot wait until we do that, here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to jillonmoney.com, okay? Underneath, you call it up, and what's there? Me and Mohammed El-Arian. It's an old haircut. Everyone relax. I know. My mother wants me to get me a new one. Okay. Now, scroll down, and there is a blog post that is which asks, will the Secure Act rescue retirement? So, again, this is really important. These are big changes, biggest changes in more than a decade for retirement people. And so it's not just important for people who are already retired. There are a lot of features of this that are going to impact all retirement savers. So until we do the full-on broadcast that is devoted to the Secure Act, you can go to the website, jillonmoney.com, and just go to the blog post, Will the Secure Act Rescue Retirement? And guess what? I'll answer that question. Okay? So that's number one. Check that out. Number two, if you've got a financial question, and there could be a lot of things that have come up towards the beginning of the year. I know that this is a great time for people to consider what they're doing with their financial lives. You just send us an email. It's askjill@jillonmoney.com. askjill@jillonmoney.com. Or maybe you're on the website and you're reading that article about the Secure Act. In that case, just hit the contact button. It's in the upper right-hand corner. All right, we like to start the program off with a real live caller. Today, it is Eric in Texas. Hello, Eric. Welcome to the program. Who do you root for? Which NFL team, my friend?
Ooh, that's a good one. I have not watched football in years, actually.
Oh, Eric, I just said to Mark, I had not either, but for some reason I got sucked into this year. I think I got a new TV and the picture's so beautiful. So anyway, I am sucked in. So I just want you to, I would encourage you to at least try it out, usually with the sound down a little bit. Anyway, hello, Eric. What can I do for you, sir?
Good morning, Jill. Such a pleasure to talk to you.
And you as well.
So I have a kind of a mashup of some different questions. Big into financial planning, listen to every show you've put out, read your book. This one is kind of an overlap on a few things. So I'm 31 years old, active duty Air Force officer, been in the seat for almost about 8 years now. So I have a very predictable salary. I know when I'll get raises, know about when I'll get promotions, bonuses, things of that nature. So the financial planning outlook is actually fairly simple because I can see the next 12 years of my life, pension after that, healthcare with that, all that kind of stuff. So I work, my wife works as well, no kids, and so we've kind of got this on autopilot for right now. We're a little late to the investing game, but I can kind of, have a bright future with all those things included. So,
do you think that did you just make a little autopilot pun because you're in the Air Force?
Not intentionally.
All right, well, it was well done.
I think I do it on accident now.
I like that. It's very good. So you have a predictable financial life, not a predictable real life, obviously.
Correct.
So thank you for serving. How do you feel about when people say thank you for serving? Because some military people say they find it pandering. Do you think, how do you feel about it?
I'm not sure. I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's kind of a running joke that's like, happy to be here, proud to serve, which is sometimes said in jest, but like, I really love what I do. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. And so it's not really so much that I'm happy. I'm glad that I get the opportunity to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something to be thanked for.
Okay.
You know, I've definitely, deployed a couple of times, missed more than my fair share of holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, all that kind of stuff. So I'm familiar with like that side of the sacrifice, but again, like I just love it, and I'm proud to do it. So
all
I
right.
don't need the thanks. But
All right. Well,
I do appreciate it.
All right. Well, we appreciate what you do. How about that?
All right.
I will do that. No, I'm not thanking you. Not thanking you for being so happy. Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about what's going on. You said that you got into investing a little bit late. So tell me a little bit about both of you. First of all, how much money do you earn together?
Just above 150.
Okay. And that cash flow is good for you? Do there's no outstanding debt?
I bought a new car a couple of years ago, and we bought her one last year, part of the dual income, no kids thing.
Nice.
And then she's still sitting on about $50,000 of student loans from her bachelor's and her master's degree.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Outside of that, we don't have anything. We're stocking. We've got about $21,000 in cash savings. We're adding $1,000 every month to that. We're additionally paying way extra on her student loans. So making good progress there.
How much is the interest rate on the student loans?
It's somewhere in the sixes.
Yeah. Okay. And the car debt, what's the interest rate and what's the outstanding balance on the two cars together?
Together it's $68,000. Mine's at about. I think they're both somewhere right around 3%.
Dude, $70,000 almost in car loans?
Yes.
What kind of car did you buy?
So I bought a Subaru sports car a couple years ago, and then we bought her a Chevy Tahoe.
But isn't it fair to say that since you fly planes for a living, that you should be a very boring driver? I'm just kidding you. All right, hang on, Eric. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more about what's going on in I got now the big picture. We're going to talk about your investments. We're going to get all of your questions answered, I promise. I don't love the car loan thing, Mark. It's a lot of money. Exactly. I mean, I appreciate that. Listen, you're right. Double income, no kids. But you know what? I'm not a car person, as has been, repeatedly proven on this program. So maybe I don't get that. Okay. It's Jill on Money. When we return, Eric, our active duty military man, and his wife have more questions, and we're going to answer those questions. So stay tuned. Jill on Money. If you have a financial question, shoot us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Mark, are you sensing that my break did wonders for me? Aren't I in a good mood? I was a little fried at the end of last year. And so I took a lot of time off. It was fantastic. Did not prevent us from putting shows out. I'm just saying that to get those shows out took a big Herculean effort by yours truly and her number one man, Mark T. All right, let us get back to our issue at hand. And that is Eric from Texas, who, with his wife, getting their financial start. And Eric, you said, how old are you? 31? How old's your wife?
31, and she is 30.
Okay, and no kids, and you're not going to have kids, right?
It's a discussion, but
Ooh.
really no further than that right now.
It has to go beyond a discussion, I have to tell you.
All right.
Just saying. I'm not an expert in that. But okay. So you've got some money in cash, 21 grand. How much would an emergency reserve of, say, 6 months be for you guys?
Ooh, probably 30.
Okay. So you're putting in $1,000 a month. So as that will get, obviously that will go up to a 30 pretty quickly. Okay. So that'll be, a this year thing. You'll have your emergency reserve beefed up to your 6 month, which probably is not the worst. You don't need to do 12 months. You are, as you said, you've got a pretty predictable income as a military person. What does your wife do for a living?
Right now, her background's in education, but we're in a real small town. So as a college educator, so there's not a lot of places for her to teach because she's pretty specialized. So right now, she also works on base. She is a civilian government contractor.
Oh, okay. All right. So tell me, so you guys have great income, 150 grand. You got the debt on the cars. You heard me give you a little bit of chiding for that. Okay, fine. I'm going to let it go. She's got 50 grand in student loans. So you're working on paying that debt down faster, right?
Correct.
And so what's going into retirement right now?
So right now she does 10% to a I believe it's Roth to a 401k, and then she gets a 3.5% match.
Great.
And then I'm doing 5% to a Roth TSP and getting a 5% match as well.
Fantastic. That's great. So you doing the 5%, she's doing the 10%. You're saving the $1,000 a month. You're making extra payments on your student loan, on her student loans, yours together, whatever. And so that's about all you can do right now. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I got it. That sounds like a good game plan. I like that. I mean, making the extra payments on obviously a 6% student loan makes a ton of sense. Really good. Now, is there any reason why you would see any change to her income in the future? Or at least like near term, at least?
No.
Okay, got it. How about any housing? Do you live in military housing? Do you own a home? What's up?
So we own a home on a 15-year VA loan, so making really good progress on there. We've been here for about a year and a half, and I'll still be here for about another 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So estimated equity when we sell it's somewhere around 40.
Mm-hmm.
So hoping to maybe use that to kill off the student loans when we leave here.
And that's a definite. In other words, like, are you making extra payments on that VA loan?
No, it's
Okay.
3.875 on a 15-year.
Great.
So I'm making killer progress just by making the minimum.
Perfect. I just don't want you to don't make any extra payments, which is great. Okay, so this sounds great. Now, what's your question?
So basically, because I can see the rest of my at least my military future with pay and raises and bonuses and that kind of stuff, we have where we want to be for retirement. And so if we do everything kind of on plan and then get just a 6% year-over-year return, we'll easily hit our target. So I kind of just have like the gates that I want to hit every year.
Okay.
And so the target for the end of this year was right at like 50,000.
Yeah.
But good market year and putting some extra money there. The actual is over 58.
Okay.
So we have, I don't want to say an extra, but like an extra like $8,000 over where I would want to be.
Yes.
But since she's only in one account and I'm only in one account, there's not really a way to rebalance, I don't think.
I gotcha.
So all of mine in the Roth TSP is all in a life cycle fund,
Mm-hmm. What
or
year?
a target date fund, or whatever you want to call it. And so I'm not sure that there's any way that rebalances itself other than changing the risk based on the time horizon.
Okay, you're in what year life cycle fund?
2050.
Okay, and what is she in?
I need to check. I'm actually not sure.
Okay, because, I mean, one thing you could do if you, I mean, again, as you could potentially take the money out of the life cycle fund as you gather more assets. Like, you have how much in your own Roth TSP right now?
So the split is 40 is mine, 18 is hers.
I mean, you could potentially say at, with this much money, with 40 grand, now you've got a nice cushion there. You can now move into, say, like, I'm going to put some money in the G fund and I'm going to put some money in the C fund and call it a day. And then you can reallocate a little bit. If you're just going to stay in the TSP and you're not going to worry and just want to let it be till you get a little bit more money in there, that's fine. Let it go. Then what we could do potentially is, if your wife is in a 401k with a target date fund, I'd love to know what her choices are in her 401k. Maybe we've got some different choices that we could allocate. And that would be a kind of like a little rebalancing. You're not going to get a true rebalance in that 2050 fund. So, essentially, I think you know this, but the extra 7,000, like your target, that, I wanted 50, I've got 57, 58. It's not really extra. It's just money that you'll need because, again, like the prior year, the markets were down. So you had a rotten year. So it all will kind of smooth out. But if you want a little more control and be able to rebalance a little more actively, then we've got to find which assets in each of your accounts make sense for you.
Sure. So you mentioned the G fund, the C fund. Would you recommend maybe like a target date fund, like a 2030?
Yeah, I mean, what you can do is you can kind of make yourself wimpier, right?
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
We are both in that category, right there with you already.
So then, yes, the other way is, if you just want to make it easy, yes, use a date that's closer to right now, which would mean, instead of having more, if you look at you drill down into the funds and you'll see that I think in the 2050 fund, you probably have a lot more in the equities and a lot less in the bonds. But if you choose more of like a 70-30 split, that's probably going to get you exactly where you want to go with a smoother ride.
Okay.
And that's it. How about that?
Too easy.
Come on. What's with you in the car, though? I mean, really, do you have the need for speed? I know that's such an annoying thing.
No,
I
definitely have. Since I was a little kid, I've had a bunch of just like stupid fast motorcycles. I got rid of the last one a few years ago. I think it's because I have to fly safe. So I teach pilot training, and I'm a mobility pilot when I'm not teaching pilot training. So almost like airlines, big, heavy, slow. So in order to get that fixed, I kind of have to have the fast, sporty car.
I have 2 words for you.
What's that?
Virtual reality.
Right.
Put some of those glasses on, get with your buddies who are like the drone guys, and just like play and, whatever. Anyway, give us a call back if you have any questions. You are a delight, and I wish you all the best. You're doing a great job right now. If for some reason there's extra money that is dumped in your lap, if your wife were to get a different job, if, your great Aunt Sarah dies and left you money, your number one priority would be to put down extra money on the student loans. Again, that 6%-ish interest rate should be the real focus. Don't do anything different. Keep putting money into your retirement account. But think about this. Once that emergency reserve fund is built up to about 30 grand, the extra money that you have, that $1,000 a month that's going into that emergency reserve, can now be used to accelerate the student loan debt pay down. That's where it should go. And then once that is paid off, you, Eric, will be able to increase your Roth TSP allocation up to that same 10% that your wife is doing. And I think you guys are in great shape. If things change and you decide to advance your conversation about kids, we'll weave that into the game plan. But so far, so good. You are doing terrifically well. So thanks for calling, Eric. If you have a financial question like Eric and his wife, just give us a shout. You can email us, askjill@jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger takes the mystery out of your finances.
Yes, indeed. It is very exciting to be here with you. It's January. I hope it's January, Mark. It's still January, right? All right, good. And you are listening to the Jill on Money Show. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address, askjill@jillonmoney.com, askjill@jillonmoney.com. Okay, Mark says it's time to do some emails. So here's what I'm going to do. Dropping the microphone down, sitting in my chair, because I like to stand up, And so I think I'm going to go back down because the knee's a little tight right now. Here we go. This is from Ray, who listens to us on KYW Radio in Philadelphia. And poor Ray says, I'm terrified. I'm about to be 62. I've got $140,000 in a savings account. I made some money on CDs back when they were paying 8%. And Ray receives Social Security disability income of $1,000 a month. He does have to pull some money out of savings to help with the bills. So this is the worry. I have a 91-year-old father that is in hospice. I will inherit what once was $1.3 million in stocks that are in a self-managed account with Ally Investments. So what once was. So there was $1.3 million. Now there's $1 million in an account. Oh, brother. Last year we lost $100,000 on GE stock, but also took money to pay for skilled nursing care. And then had to move, he says I had to move $200,000 in cash into a joint checking. In almost 3 years in a nursing home, it's drained over $250,000. Ugh. All right, but meanwhile, he said, this does say, my dad picked out some stocks many years ago. But he says, I am worried he will outlive what's left in cash. I keep hearing the market is going to tank in 2020. I'm going to lose everything. The nursing home's wiping us out. Oh, boy. So he says, I don't trust local financial advisors. I'm scared. I'm concerned I'm going to lose my house and his house. You're not going to lose your house. All right. So first of all, you've got $1 million in cash. Okay? So the best thing that you can do right now is to take some of the money that's in stocks and essentially move that into cash. See if you can take, you said you lost money on GE. I bet long term you still have a gain. But I would go through the account and start to free up some cash. Okay? So if you think about it, it sounds to me that the 3 years, $9,000 a month. I don't mean to be crude about it, but if your dad is already in hospice, it would seem to me that this is not going to go that much longer. So if you're really worried, then what I would say is put more money in cash and keep a little extra money there. You're not going to. The thing that you could lose, essentially, is you could plow through the money. If for some reason this, you start plowing through tons and tons and tons of cash, which I just don't think is going to happen. That would be as if he were going to live, 10 more years. It doesn't sound like that's going to happen. You'll get some money. And whatever it is, it is. I sort of feel like at this point, it's crazy for you to make yourself nuts, Ray. I think you're okay. If you need more money, then make sure that money is in cash and don't fret too much. All right? Mark, what can I do to make this guy feel better? He's still got $1 million. I know. Don't say that, though. People who are in distress hate when you say it could be worse. It's like a very Susan Schlesinger comment. Well, you could be dying. Well, yeah, but that's not making me feel better in the moment. Suzanne writes, I need help on my health insurance plan. I retired this past May and lost our health insurance plan for me and my husband. I dread the principle of health insurance and just hate how the prices are high. Anyway, late 40s, very healthy, don't go to the doctor except for annual physical. And so she's thinking about a high deductible plan. That's good. With HSA eligibility. HSA is the part I'm confused about. Is that just putting money on an account every month free of tax and you can only use the money for medical expenses? Yeah. And it does roll over because it's actually available forever. So it even can help you in your retirement. So the question is, do you think it's a better idea to use a high deductible plan and paired with the HSA or just buy standard insurance. You know what? It's a crapshoot. If you guys are really healthy, then it can work great. So I would try it. And the thing that is important, of course, is if you think you're going to have some big procedure, like you need a knee replacement or something, then it's not good to do an HSA. And really, you got to be thinking about traditional insurance. But for now, yeah, I would go for it and make sure that works. I think it should. Don't sweat too much. It'll be good. Why do people hate health insurance so much? I mean, I get that you hate it because it's expensive, but it's like the idea of health insurance, the idea of insurance is so awesome that you pool everything together, all of us, and we get into the pool together. It's great. And you hope you never need it, as Mark says. Lawrence, or Larry, writes, my wife is getting ready to retire from the government. There's an option to take a survivor benefit for me if she were to pass away before me. It would reduce her monthly benefits by $325 a month. We're both in average health. We've got $3.5 million in retirement accounts. Hold on a second. Woo! Okay. I'm 65. I've got my own business. I like working, so I don't plan on retiring soon. Do we elect survivor benefits or take the additional money? I know. I would like survivor benefits also. It's just not a ton of money, and it's not a big difference. I'm taking the survivor benefits also. Mark and I both sort of went there. You know what? We're wimps. There's probably a case to be made for doing the other, but I like the survivor benefits. I think you do it. I think so. Okay, when we return, we're going to get back to more of your questions. If you have something on your mind, just shoot us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. And if you're poking around our website, JillOnMoney.com, we also have a contact button. It's in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, we'll be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com, or when you're on the website, JillOnMoney.com is our website. Upper right-hand corner, little contact button right there. Okay, this is from Robert. Who says, I need advice on what company is safe to contact to obtain debt relief from a credit card company. Health issues in our family were not covered by our health insurance company, and it created a large medical debt. Do you know this is so common that probably in the early 90s or so, I started reading that the number one cause of bankruptcies in the United States was medical debt. And this is so, it's pernicious. Anyway, let's go back to Robert, who says, I hear radio ads that promote companies that say I can obtain some debt forgiveness and lower the interest rate. But he says he's got a couple organizations here. National Foundation for Credit Counseling and another one. And he says, I'm 75 years old. I've had a major reduction in real estate commissions. Not a great place to be. Help. I mean, look, there are some legit organizations, right? But I think that what you really want to be considering is making the conversation come directly from you. I think when I hear about the most successful debt negotiations with card companies, they come when the person, him or herself, makes the call. So especially for you, if you're a real estate person, you're probably good at talking, you're probably good at sales. I would just call the company yourself. Make the pitch. And if you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and what's going on, then indeed, I would say that the most important thing that you could do is just get on the phone and do it. Okay? Do it. Do it, do it, do it. Okay. Becky writes that I have a safety account that has $100,000. It's earning 2%. My child has outstanding student loan debt of around $100,000. Hey, Mark, imagine that. Just the exact same amount, 100 and 100. Of course, now think about this. The student loan debt has got interest rate of over 5%. Becky's earning 2%. She says, my goal is to help her pay down her student loan debt ASAP. Your thoughts on how to best manage this? I have no debt. I own my own home and car. I don't know anything else about you, Becky. I mean, if you've got $10 million in the bank, sure, and in other assets, or you're completely set for your retirement. I mean, I'm very concerned that people take their savings and pay down their kids' debt, and then they regret that 10 years from now when they wish they had their money in that account. So what I would say is that you really should make sure that you're secure. And without more information, I can't tell you whether or not that's the case. All right? All right. Let's get more info. Will writes, after 20 years worth of contributions into my 401k, my wife and I planned on earning less last year. That's because I took temporary leave. I put about $6,000 in a Roth 401k instead of the regular 401k. I didn't realize the Roth would go into the same account and the funds. Oh, brother. All right. So this is what happened. The money went into to one big master account instead of having two separate accounts. What a pain in the ass. Oh, brother. Anyway, plan administrator told me the gains on our company's Roth will be taxable on withdrawal. Is this true in my case? Is there any way? Oh, God. You need to get someone else on the plan administrators and to help you. That's what I'm going to tell you right now. What I would say is maybe you can work with a plan administrator to recharacterize that and say, I want that money back. I don't know if you can. It sounds to me like, well, how is this possible that through your employer, they commingled the funds? I've never heard of that, and it doesn't seem right to me. I feel like we need more information, Will, and I think that you're going to have to escalate this and keep calling till you get someone who can really help you out. Really, truly. Oof. This is terrible. Alex is a disabled veteran, lives near a VA facility. They cover me for everything. I've asked many people. I can't get a legit answer. Can I drop Part B of Medicare? I'm financially okay. I'm retired. What do you think? I don't think you can. I mean, you got to talk to someone at the VA, but I wouldn't do it before I talk to somebody at the VA. That's for sure. Okay. JC is retired, wants a diversified portfolio of income-producing investments. I have enough invested. I'd like to start taking income from my portfolio. How do I restructure my portfolio into an income stream? I'd only be taking dividends and interest from the account and letting the balance ride. I don't like or want annuities. I need more info. JC's got to get on the phone. I want to know how much money you have. I need to know what you have invested in currently, and then we need to have a game plan. This is too big just for, a one paragraph or easy description from me. I need more info. How much time do I got? Under a minute. Sam took early retirement years ago. Package included pension, and I believe the company's about to be sold. If that happens, are my monthly pension payments safe? Or could the new owners, in an effort to cut costs, decide to no longer pay pensions to retired employees? That would be highly unlikely that happens. It's more likely that the new people will not be eligible to a pension. So I think if you're already earning a pension, you're probably okay. You can talk to the benefits people at the new company when that actually happens, but I think you should be okay. You are listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, give us a holler, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One studios here in New York City. Capital One, what's in your wallet? This is a question that comes from LC, who wants to know, are you ever too old to invest in stocks or stock mutual funds? I have a senior relative in her early 90s, modest portfolio, about $500,000. It's all in money markets and interest-bearing savings accounts. In early 90s, you can understand that. Flip side is very little return in the current market. So she's a widow. She still lives independently in a house that's paid for. She lives comfortably on Social Security and her pension. There's no long-term care policy, so if there were a future need for skilled nursing facility, these funds would be the prime source to pay those bills. My research indicates a good ballpark figure to stay in one of those places, about $100,000 a year. Her nest egg could be depleted pretty quickly if this were to occur. Okay, but I just would point out to you that you'd also have, yes, the nest egg would be depleted, but you also would still have your Social Security and the pension, which I don't know is how much, but I mean, that would, if it's, so let's just say that Social Security and pension right now was $50,000 and the facility cost $100,000, you need $50,000 a year to help her out. Okay, but that said, I'm wondering, is it worth the risk to put some of the money in more aggressive investments to create a bigger cushion for the future, or should be left alone with zero risk? This is funny. I would say this. I think putting 10, 15, even 20% into the stock market wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. Just to give you a little juice. Of course, I'm saying this after we've had a year when the S&P 500 was up almost 30%, so it feels horrible to say that. But, even if it's just 10% in an S&P 500 fund, I think that, that might give you a decent shot at getting a little bit extra return for her. Obviously, she has to feel comfortable with this. So let's see if you have a conversation that works. All right? I think we're done. Mark says that's it. We're done with this hour. So I got to do a nice little outro for you all. When we return, it's the interview part of the program and special guest star coming up. You'll have to wait and see who that guest is, but it is Jill on Money. During this break, why don't you go over to JillOnMoney.com and you can subscribe and sign up for our free weekly newsletter, and you can subscribe to our podcast. It's called Jill on Money. So check it out. It's all at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome. It's hour number 2. It's Jill on Money. And yes, we are competing with the National Football League this weekend. I don't want you to worry if you decide you must be watching football. Maybe you're in transit going to somewhere important. Maybe you're doing something fabulous in your life. Don't worry. You can always go to our website after the fact, and you can listen to the show. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to want to listen for this guest, or these guests, I should say, because there's 2 of them. A married couple who have decided to, I should mention that we are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Just go to policygenius.com. Okay, there we go. Now, here are our guests. They are part of the FIRE movement, Financial Independence, Retire Early. Now, we've talked about this before in the program. I've talked about this in a variety of different outlets. I think this movement is amazing. I'm much more interested in the FI, the financial independence, than the retire early. But that said, I'd love you to meet this really interesting couple, Christy Shen, Bryce Luong. They're married. They've written a book called Quit Like a Millionaire. And that book does outline a lot of how they got to this place where they were focusing on how to be financially independent and how they hoped to retire early. So much of it has to do with their backgrounds. And that's where we start our interview with Christy Shen and Bryce Luong. First of all, let's just talk about your journey. You have a first-generation mindset, which is really instructive for how you were able to kind of go through this process in a lot of ways and how you've managed it. So can you talk a little bit about, take us to your roots, your life, and your journey?
Sure. So I wrote this book, and it kind of follows my journey. from living in rural China and then later on immigrating to the West. And it's split into 3 parts where I talk about poverty and then middle class and then finally becoming rich. And the reason why I did that is because I want to show people that you don't have to be privileged to become financially independent.
Which is actually one of the criticisms that you've encountered from the FIRE movement. Oh, it's a bunch of bro-y dudes in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, you're all like rich people, and that's how you became FI. The thing is, for me, growing up in China with my family, at one point we were actually living on 44 cents a day. People talk about how the scarcity mindset is harmful, and if you grew up poor, you're never going to be able to get out of that, and you need to have the abundance mindset in order to become rich. But for me, it was actually quite the opposite. I actually credit the scarcity mindset, which I talk about in the book, Quit Like a Millionaire, in terms of how it helped me get here.
How old were you when you moved here?
So I was 8 years old.
Did not speak a word of English.
Nope, did not speak a word of English. I was amazed by everything. I was amazed by a toilet. I was actually scared of it because I didn't know how to use it. I was like, am I going to get sucked into it? I don't know how it works. I had no idea how it works. I was amazed by just the fact that there's supermarkets that you can just go in and there's food everywhere. I was amazed by a can of Coke because my dad gave me a can of Coke for the first time. This is considered like rich people drink in rural China because it's considered something that it would cost you like a whole day's wages to buy a can of Coke. So when my dad gave me a can of Coke and I opened it up and I took a sip, like my mind was blown. Like I had a massive nosebleed because it was seriously the best thing I've ever tasted in my life.
This book brought to you by Coca-Cola, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
Totally.
Did I say that I hate Pepsi?
Subliminal message.
Exactly.
Yes, Coca-Cola.
So when you came here, did you come as a family, or did you come? Was there different timing?
Yeah. So there's a bit of background with how we actually immigrated. So originally, my dad actually came first. So when we were living in China at one point, because of the Cultural Revolution, like my dad had been sent to, like before I was born, he was sent to like a labor camp for 10 years, right? And the only reason he was able to get out of it, like he worked in a factory, and the only reason he was able to get out of it was because Chairman Mao died and they reinstated university exams. So my dad was able to get out, being able to be educated and finally get university education and be able to like go to the West in order to get his family out. And initially the plan was just for my dad to go train for like 2 years, take the knowledge from the West back to China, and then me and my mom would have to stay almost as like de facto hostages so that he would come back, right? He's not allowed to just immigrate.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So,
okay, so you come here, you drink your can of Coke. What's your dad doing? And is your mom working also?
So my dad at the time is working on getting his PhD, so he's a student. My mom couldn't speak English. She doesn't have a high school education, which is another result of the Cultural Revolution. So she worked mostly in restaurants, washing dishes. So initially, the first couple of years was very hard because we were trying to send money back home as well, like to try to support our family.
So let's go to you, Bryce. What's your upbringing? How do you come to this world?
Not nearly as intense as Christy's.
I know. You got no street cred, dude.
My parents are from Hong Kong, and because they were Hong Kong and at the time was under British rule, we were British subjects, I guess. My dad has he showed me one of his old British subject passports, and I remember at the time Hong Kong was quite annoyed with the British for doing all that colonialization thing, and then we saw what was going on in communist China, and we're like, you know what, this is okay.
Right, you know what, we like tea. Tea's good.
Tea's fine.
Fantastic.
Yay, British people.
All right, so your parents come over here and they settle also in Canada?
Yeah, they were. We settled in Toronto, and I grew up in a middle class background. She grew up from a poverty kind of thing. And what's interesting is that this combination is actually quite common in the FIRE space.
Really,
a lot of people, because the scarcity mindset that she alluded to, that's the thing that causes Christy to be hyper vigilant on how much you spend, right? So she's the one that is constantly like, okay, this is too much. This, like, how much are we spending, and constantly tracking it all? Because in a scarcity mindset, money becomes the most important thing to you. And as a result of that, you become very hypervigilant about spending.
It's also because you don't think that anyone's going to come save you if anything goes wrong, right? It's like you have to take care of yourself because, I've always been brought up thinking that the government is not going to help me and that bad things could always happen and there's nothing you can do about it. So
how did you guys meet?
In college. We've been married for 9 years and together for 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So
And every day is just better than that.
Oh, my God. You've trained him so well.
I have totally brainwashed
Fantastic.
him. Yeah.
All right. So you get out of college. What is the job that you get when you come out?
The one I got initially, in the beginning, nobody has any experience. So it's very difficult to get a job. And then everything is on your resume is like, oh, I worked at McDonald's, or I waited tables, and there's nothing related to what you actually want to do. So my first internship was testing. Because they wouldn't trust me with anything important. So it really is like, here's code that somebody else wrote. You just need to like click through the page and make sure everything is okay.
Okay.
So you're expected to kind of go from testing eventually to become a software engineer. And it takes a while to get there. No, I didn't have any experience coding. And I really wanted to actually code, but nobody would let me because they wouldn't trust me with it. It was actually one interview. I think it was during my third internship that I had been applying for a job coding, and they actually thought I wanted the testing job because they had mixed up the actual job description. And then during the interview, they were asking me all these testing questions. I was like, oh no, am I interviewing for the wrong job? But then at the end of it, I was really enthusiastic. I was like, I'm so happy you gave me this opportunity. Like I can work overtime. I can do anything you need me to do. I'm there. Like just bring it on. And then because of my enthusiasm, they actually decided to give me the coding one.
job.
Yeah. And
wow.
So it was completely mind-blowing.
Okay, we will get back to the authors of Quit Like a Millionaire, Christy Shen and Bryce Luong, in just a minute. During the break, why don't you go to our website, JillOnMoney.com. You can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. You can buy my book, and you can subscribe to our sister broadcast. It's called the Jill on Money Podcast. So easy. So check it out. All of that at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money. Thanks so much for joining us. Beginning of the year, and high time for you to be focusing on your finances. It's always a good time. I should also note that, we're about to butt up against our tax planning season, so we'll be talking a lot about your taxes. The second year of the new tax code should be a lot less confusing than the first year. But in the middle of that, we also have the Secure Act passing through Congress, which may confuse you ginormously. So we're going to be able to talk about that. Don't worry, we're going to have a special guest come in, and we'll be sure to have the Secure Act ins and outs, the biggest retirement change in, I think, the decade. Okay, let us get back to our interview with Christy Shen and Bryce Luong. They've written a book called Quit Like a Millionaire. They are among the many young folks who are involved in the FIRE movement, Financial Independence, Retire Early. Hey, Mark, maybe we'll put a link up to the article I wrote about the FIRE movement on the show notes so people can read more. Okay, here's more of our interview with Christy and Bryce. How did you come to learn about the FIRE movement? Or even, I don't even know if you found it as a movement or if you just sort of adopted this yourselves.
At the time, it was not a movement.
Yeah, it wasn't. Right.
No.
It's a little before that.
Yeah,
right?
that was I think around 2011, 2012. We were reading blogs. We mostly found it through, it started with Pete, Mr. Money Mustache, and then we found J.L. Collins, the Mad Scientist, the usual suspects.
Right.
And so I think it was actually a big relief for me because I thought that buying a house was the only way out, and that was the only way to build your equity. And my parents were pressuring me to buy a house. See, that's the thing that really surprised me because I'm like, my mom, who used to hit me for losing keys that cost $30, was like, you need to spend $1 million buying a house. That's totally normal because it's always going to go up. And I'm like, Mom, this is the exact opposite of everything you've ever taught me.
Shameless plug for my own book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. Chapter 4 is you buy a house when you should rent. And I say that the problem really does occur because there's a generation of people that did benefit from buying a house, but that's just dopey good luck timing.
Right.
And they have no way to really assess what it means today to make that decision. But you guys came to it yourselves.
Yep.
Now talk about what were the things you did to actually quit like a millionaire? Did you have a game plan, or how did it start?
But around 2011, 2012, we had saved up about $500,000. And
Wait a minute. So you're taking home 120. So whatever, you're making like 160 pre-tax ish.
Yep, something.
Ish, yeah.
Right. Okay. So how did you save $500,000 so fast?
Part of it was by that time we had been working almost 7 years, and then we had gotten about 2 promotions since then, right? So
Got it.
There's like salary increases as we went.
And we weren't really increasing our lifestyle because we were still living basically like college grads right out of school, because we were like, we didn't have a car. We were we were just renting like the top floor of a townhouse.
But it wasn't like a piece of crap. You didn't feel like, oh, I'm living. You're not like squalor.
We avoided basements because I did that as a student, and I got really bad allergies as a result of that, so I didn't want to do that. It was the top floor of a townhouse, and then the landlord lived in the bottom floor. It was like 25-minute subway ride from downtown, whereas all my friends were renting like the fancy condos downtown. So their rent was at least $1,500,
right?
But our rent was $850.
All right, so I just want to go back. So here we are. You're like, think I got $500,000. I'm ready to buy a house. You basically come up with this kind of, I think, interesting form. It's your formula, this rule of 150. Right. No one else has this. Can you explain your rule of 150?
Yeah. So one of the things that happens when you try to buy a house is like when you go to the bank to get a mortgage, they push you on these mortgage calculators, right? Just put it into the mortgage calculator and look, voila, your mortgage is the same as your rent. Of course, it makes sense to buy a house. Otherwise, you're going to lose money to rent. But the thing is, they fail to tell you that there's all these extra costs that come with home ownership, right?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, you got to pay for them. You got to pay for the property taxes. You got to pay for insurance,
real estate commissions,
maintenance,
Yeah.
all these things,
is
right?
Killer.
Yeah, and that's why, like when we do the math in the book, we actually break everything down, and when you add it up at the end of the day, it adds 50% on top of the mortgage to your costs, right? If you were running a business and you just ignored 50% of your expenses, you're in big trouble. But that's what happens a lot of the times when real estate agents or banks try to sell you a house, because once you sign on the dotted line, they get their commission, they get their interest, and like you're stuck with the house. That's not their problem.
So you have this $500,000, and now do you actually put like down on paper a plan? Like, okay, wait, we could do this, or does it happen more organically?
I was aware of the FIRE movement, and I was trying to figure out ways to invest as well. When I broke down the math, and I kind of presented her with the choice here. It was like, okay, we could go ahead and buy that house and get into enough debt to last us for 25 years, and then maybe get back to zero when we're old and gray or whatever. Or based on our current savings rate, which was at the time, we were saving almost like, I think slightly over $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
I could project. I was like, okay, we could do that, or we become a millionaire and retire in 3 years. So 25 years of debt or 3 years to freedom. And then she kind of went,
your math is wrong. Let me check that over. I was like,
let me let the brains of this operation check this. Okay, so now you check the math and you're like, okay, $1 million.
Right. But
that could be kind of cool, right?
I still didn't really believe it, because part of me was like, okay, we have to invest and we have to like put all this money in instead of putting it into the house. Then my scarcity mindset kicks in. This is when it's a good idea to actually learn from middle class and wealthy as well, right? Because at this point, the scarcity mindset ends up turning into like the hoarding mindset, and it's not helpful, right? So at this time, I had a lot of fear, and I was worried about the math. I'm glad that I actually got over that fear, and part of that was because we already learned from investing back in 2008 that we got out of it without losing money. That kind of gave me the assurance that, okay, this is going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. Let's do this. And then we actually became financially independent a lot faster than I thought it was going to take. So it took us 3 years from that point. So after 9 years of career of working, we ended up being financially independent at 31 and 32.
Okay, so you're 31, 32. You got $1 million in retirement and non-retirement funds, or mostly a little bit of a mix.
Yeah.
Okay,
half.
So $1 million. When I do that quick back of the envelope math in the geeky way that I do,
love it.
I say, oh well, it can generate X amount of dollars. You're not going to pull money out of the retirement account, right? You're going to let that go. Are you pulling money out of your non-retirement assets right now to live?
Yeah. I mean, like, there's this misnomer of like, don't touch the retirement part, and then only pull off of the. You can treat the entire thing as like one giant portfolio,
right?
Because after you retire and your income drops, you can then melt down your 401ks gradually, and then in a tax-free way,
right?
So it doesn't actually matter which account that the amount is from, but yes, we are living off of that initial portfolio. And by combining it with other things like, world travel, we're actually able to keep our expenses even lower than that.
What we found is that after we retired, there's like a 3-prong strategy that we put together because we're engineers and we like to have backup
Love
plans,
that.
right? So the first plan is that a lot of people say, like, what if you have to sell your assets during a downturn? The thing is, they don't realize that there's also yield coming from the portfolio in which you don't have to actually sell any of the underlying assets, right? So if our portfolio, which is currently yielding about 3.5%, $35,000, if we were in Thailand, which we actually were just like 3 weeks ago in Bangkok, I found out that inflation is hardly present at all, and we were able to live really well, getting massages almost every day for $25,000 a year for the two of us. So if you take that and you're taking the yield and then subtracting your living expenses, you're actually making $10,000 even if the market is crashing.
So the corpus of the money you've saved continues to grow.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
When we left 3 years ago, we left with $1 million. And then now, like right now, it's like sitting at like 1.3. So we're actually making money while traveling on retirement.
Bull market. Thank you very much.
Bull market.
We'll take that.
Helps. Yeah.
We'll take that.
Yeah.
And you wrote a book, you sold it, you made a few shekels, right?
Yeah, sure.
We're actually not using the money that we've earned in passion projects outside. So
what are you doing with it?
We're just putting it in a separate portfolio. So that could be like we've given some money to family as gifts. We've done some donations.
Oh my God,
so it's
you guys are so good.
Part of it is because like I feel like I don't actually need to inflate my lifestyle because I'm extremely happy the way I am right now.
Yeah.
So it's what am I gonna go buy a car? No. What am I gonna do with it?
Okay, we will return in just a minute. Hey, during the break, why don't you think about a great financial question that's been bugging you? Maybe it was during the holidays, maybe some other time. Send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. That's Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are delighted that you're with us. Just want to remind you, early in the year, just to make sure that you have some of your resources, we have a great resource section on the website on JillOnMoney.com. Mark keeps it beefed up, but if you've encountered or run across some really helpful websites that you think we should add to our resource list, just let us know. Shoot us a note. So go to JillOnMoney.com. You can click on the resource tab, see what's there. If you think you've got something great to add, just click the contact button in the top right corner of the website and let us know, because Mark may add it. But, it's got to get through his filter, which is, it's real. Okay, let's get back to our interview with Christy Shen and Bryce Luong. They've written a book called Quit Like a Millionaire. They are adherents of the FIRE movement. And I'm always wondering, what it must feel like to just quit, because even if you hate your workplace, it is your workplace. It's sort of your second family. And a lot of people love the space where they find colleagues and intellectual curiosity, maybe or just almost like a second family. So I wanted to finish up this interview thinking about what it means to just walk away from these communities that we build at work. The two parts of this that were fascinating to me, you mentioned them, loss of community and loss of identity. That's the part I think that people can't imagine. But if you're not working, then who are you? That's hard. So you mentioned these things as this is part of your fear that you needed to conquer.
Absolutely. And I didn't love my job. So I thought that when I quit, I would be dancing around the office, banging my boss's head like a bongo. It didn't really happen, right? And what happened was I gave my notice and I had a panic attack, like a minor one, right?
Really?
Yeah, because I was like, what am I doing?
Did your nose bleed?
Yes, a lot. No, it was totally fine this time. But it wasn't just the work thing. My parents were also like, what are you doing? This is a horrible idea, right? And so the entire time I'm thinking I've developed this identity for 10 years and all of a sudden I'm going to give it up. Who am I now? right? And that is definitely a fear that a lot of people have, which keeps them from, like the golden handcuffs and continuing going back to the job. But the surprising thing I found is that my network of friends and my group, my support group, has grown exponentially since we left. One of the things that ends up happening when you're working is that your brain is in lizard mode, like it can't tap into the creative part of your brain, and then you can't get out of your bubble to like meet other people, right? So one of the things that ended up happening when we traveled is we met friends all over the world, and being part of this FIRE community just adds additional support as well. It is definitely very, very hard to walk away from that status quo path when you don't have enough support. Like now that we're coming out from the other side, I absolutely do not regret it, and I don't know what I was so afraid of. It's just that ingrained thinking. You've been doing this for so long. It's the devil that you know. If you leave, then it's going to be much worse. But it's actually much, much better. You end up meeting so many friends that you wouldn't have met otherwise.
And I would suspect that a lot of people who are adhering or at least adopting the FIRE movement, I think a lot of the people that I speak to, it's financial independence. It's not about retire early. It's like financial independence and opportunity and optionality. Like, I don't want to get stuck in that job for X amount of years. It's too much. So, but if I do all this stuff today, in this, from the time I'm 28 to 38, I will have the entire world open to me, and I could do whatever I want. And I don't think that that's what most people understand. And it's hard to, like, for someone like me, like I'm trained like a certified financial planner, and it's very difficult to get human beings whose brains are not long-term, right? We're short-term creatures. It's very difficult to convince somebody, if you do this now, you're going to be so much happier in 10 years. Yeah. But you guys are. And you're proof of that. Tell me a little bit about that community. Where do you see the growth coming from? Is it millennials? Are there older people coming in? Are there old farts like me coming in? Like, what do you think is happening in that?
Yeah, everybody's welcome.
Everyone's in the pool.
Everybody's in the pool. It's not a millennial thing, but I think it's really appealing to millennials in particular because for the boomer generation, jobs were stable. Jobs, if you got laid off, you did something horribly wrong, and it was your fault that you did something bad, right? Yeah. But for us, we can get laid off at any point. I mean, like, we are endlessly pilloried in the media for being disloyal and flaky, and these millennials just jump from job to job and don't know the value of hard work. It's like, we're not doing that on purpose. We're doing that because our jobs disappear after every 3 or 4 years, and we have to constantly keep moving. Otherwise, we're going to get outsourced, or our company's going to go under, or something like that. We don't show any loyalty to our company because we know that there's no loyalty coming back the other way. And this whole FIRE movement was a response to the fact that there is no real job stability in our world anymore. So FIRE is our way of creating income stability.
Now, before I let you go, Chapter 4, don't follow your passion yet. Can you talk a little bit about why you wrote this chapter and what's so important about, like, this idea of, like, follow your passion? What is the downside of doing that?
Right. Okay, so the whole idea of just follow your passion blindly, I think that kind of came from the Steve Jobs, his Stanford commencement speech. That's like, if you follow your passion, then everything will just work out, right? Anything can go wrong at any point. You have to take care of yourself. Your parents can't be there for you. I learned very early on to choose my career based on something I called the POT score, which is pay over tuition, which is the idea that instead of just going into something because you love it, you actually evaluate whether the amount of money you would get paid over the minimum wage would be worth the amount of money you're spending in tuition. And it's not just about, like, just take the job that earns the most amount of money, like be a doctor. When we actually do the analysis in the book, you'll find out that doctors, it's actually not that great in terms of becoming FI because they have to be in school for 10 years and rack up a lot of debt, and then it takes a long time for that to pay back. Originally, I wanted to be, novelist, right? And then later I found out that novelists make, on average, like $5,000 a year, and 93% of books sell less than 1,000 copies, right? So for me, like, it was really more of a practical decision to make the decision that you shouldn't just blindly follow your passion. Figure out whether the degree is actually worth it. Not all degrees are equal.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you will not be a starving artist. You will have money and you'll have what you love.
What do you think is Chapter 2 for you guys? I feel like, let's say Chapter 3, because, like, you have this 10 years. Now you're in, like, high travel, book, promotion, all this. What can we expect next from you?
I think we're quite passionate about, financial education. After the book came out, some of my readers have written to me, like, can you, speak at university lecture halls, try to get the book out to as many people as possible to save them from like the financial mistakes, right? Because I feel like if you know about financial independence, retire early as possible in university, then you'll be able to understand how investing works. You'll have that long runway in the market, and you won't be able to get into a lot of student debt without realizing that that degree is not worth it.
Thanks so much to Christy Shen and Bryce Luong. The book is called Quit Like a Millionaire. When we return, we're getting back to you. The focus is on you. How are you going to gain your financial independence? We can help you out. Just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and we are delighted that you're with us, as always. Do you have a financial question that's burning? Do you have something that came up around the holidays or the year end? Or are you already looking forward to tax season? That's really the most wonderful time of the year, isn't it? Anyway, give us a shout. We'd love to help you out. Now that Mark is a CFP professional. Woo! Did our friend at the CFP board know about that, Mark, by the way? Yeah. I might have to tell that person. Okay, anyway, we've got 2 CFPs here ready to help you out. Just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. That's what Teresa did. And she writes, greetings from Alaska. It is exceedingly helpful. I'm 57. My husband is 59. We're thinking that we're going to work for another 7 or 8 years. We've been very cautious with our money. So cautious that we've probably screwed up our retirement. Anyway, let's see. $55,000 in cash. $20,000 in something. What is RA? IRA. That's what I'm thinking. It's an IRA. $20,000 in an IRA. I like that. 401k, 40 grand in CDs. She's a teacher. She's got a teacher's retirement. And her husband, is in the federal government and has got a thrift savings plan worth $460,000. We've never invested in the stock market. We didn't have the money to lose. What should we do? We bought your book. We've made it through halfway. And did no dumb things yet because we haven't done anything with our money. How to proceed. You're the best. Thanks in advance. Well, okay, here's my question to you. When you retire in your mid-60s and you have that retirement income, the pension, you'll have 2 pensions and maybe one of you, I don't know if both of you will get it, but maybe one of you will get Social Security. Will that be enough for you to live on? Because if it is, then maybe don't fret too much. It doesn't sound like you did anything stupid. It would be nice for you to have some of your money in the stock market just to keep pace for future inflationary trends. I mean, right now inflation's low, but you never know. So what I would say is that if you, the first place to start is to say, how much money do we spend today? And then project how much money will you be spending in your retirement. That's your annual income needs. Then you go back and you say, okay, when we retire, how much income will we have? If the income that you have is larger than the income that you need, you're in fine shape. And then the only reason you'd be adding to creating a stock market position in your retirement accounts is to just give you a little extra boost in case we have an inflationary period over the next 30 years. Now, I think that it's hard to do this in terms of like, well, how am I going to put money in the stock market? I'd really like to talk to you guys. So I'm going to say this. That's your first step. Get to that part. Read the retirement chapter of my book and go through that like really easy section, which is like, here's your quick back of the envelope, how you try to create a retirement plan. And after you've read that, send us another email and let me know where we stand. How about that? All right, next up, Beth, your excellent podcast is my absolute favorite in the personal finance space. She's probably listening to like a lot of other fun things, but thank you very much. I appreciate your respectful approach to your callers and your ability to do thoughtful planning with lots of different income levels, debt circumstances, and life situations. Okay, here's my question. We have 2 daughters, ages 3 and 5. We contribute to their 529 plans up to the deductible threshold in our state, but we'd like to sock away more for future education. I've read a bit about using IRAs as a college savings vehicle, and I'd like your take on the strategy. A little more about my situation. I'm 33, husband's 38, daughters 3 and 5, combined income about $200,000. Current Roth balance, $85,000. Traditional balance, $39,000. Emergency fund, $20,000, which is about 4 months of our living expenses. We both max out our IRAs. My husband's 403B, maxing my husband's 403B. She puts money in her 401k, contribute another $8,000 to a SEP. Mortgage is outstanding, a little auto loan at 3%. 529s have $25,000. Beyond what we put towards their 529s, we've got another $200 a month to save for college. Girls are in elementary school. Should we be putting extra funds we have available for college savings into the 529s or into my SEP IRA? Or do I need to convince another one of my employers to open a 401k? Another thought is whether it makes sense to refi into a 15-year mortgage. I can tell you that right now. No, don't do that. Do not do that. I think you should just put the money into the 529 plans. I don't think you need to worry about the retirement stuff. The side question, I want to open IRAs for my daughters when they're young, before 18, with the hope by the time they're in their 20s, they're already seeing the power of compounded interest. What is a good strategy for opening an IRA as young as possible? Okay, so first things first, the extra money each month. I want to do one, like, right now, you've got $200 a month to save. You only have 4 months of living expenses in the bank, so do me a favor. Use that $200 a month so you get 6 months in the bank. Then, when that's done, use the $200 a month to fund the 529 accounts. IRAs, you could open them anywhere. You just want to do it at a place where it's cheap to do it and there's no minimum. So the good strategy is I would wait, obviously, till they're sort of teenagers and use it as a teaching tool. That's what I would do. That's what my friend Beth Kobliner would tell you to do. And she's super smart. All right, that's the segment. We're going to come back. We're going to do more of your questions. If you've got a financial concern, question, query, send us an email. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. And before we finish the program, we want to remind you that we are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Just go to policygenius.com. All right. Before we finish up, we're going to address a question from Jerry, who asks, what is the best way to fund a new home construction? We have $500,000 equity in our primary residence. We have $800,000 in a 401k. Our home has outstanding. So their primary residence has an outstanding mortgage of just under $100,000 at 3.25%. I keep it because we can use the deduction and the money's cheap. The lake home will be about $350,000. And you don't talk about any money that's actually in non-retirement assets. I guess one way to do this, there's a number of ways. So first of all, there are new construction loans, which usually require you to put some money down and then you can borrow money against it. One way to think about this would be to refinance your current loan. I know it's 3.25%, but rates dropped again. So maybe you'd get a 3.5% loan and take some money out. And essentially, instead of I would rather you not tap the retirement account because then there's a taxable event. I started too soon. So, okay, so probably a refi is what's going to work. But are you sure you should be building this lake home? Let's start I really should have started there. Have you run the numbers to determine whether you can afford this? Have you figured out whether or not this makes sense for your own retirement plan? You didn't give me a lot of information. You didn't tell me how old you are. I'm thinking that I need some more info. But for anyone else listening, if you're doing that second home, you got to be very careful. And the numbers that you need to understand are how the money pulled out of your whole financial life would impact your retirement. That's important. So give me some more info, and then we can hopefully help you out. All right, this has been a great show. Thank you so much for listening. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Our website is conveniently called jillonmoney.com. And our sister podcast is also called Jill on Money. And you know what? You can get it anywhere you get podcasts like Apple, Stitcher, radio.com, Google Play. So exciting. So check it out. Slightly different. Thanks always for listening. Thanks always to Mark for producing and being the best ever, whatever you are to me. Husband, work husband. I like that. Not real husband. I don't need one of those. All right. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.